Welcome to another Coffee with Samso. Today we are talking to LCL Resources Limited. The ASX code is LCL, and we are talking to the Executive Chair, Chris van Wijk. LCL has been a guest on Coffee with Samso previously under a different leader. Today they are all about a gold project in Papua New Guinea. So the Colombian project, which we talked about previously, is under the transaction to Tiger Gold, TSX hopeful. I think they are going through their IPO at the moment. So in generality, the transaction is for about $8 million when it's completed. So LCL came across my screen again, and I thought that, now they're looking at a gold project in Papua New Guinea. They just released a maiden inferred resources. It is 18.3 million tons at a grade of 1.42 for just 831,000 ounces. It's early days. It's an inferred resources. It's Papua New Guinea, but in a gold-friendly environment at the moment. Very gold-centric, bullish sentiment at the moment. I think with a market cap of just under $10 million, it is worth a look. The recent success of Tolu Minerals kind of give me an concept that, LCL could be the next one. But, as I said, a conversation with Chris is all about what LCL is, and let's get into the details of what the company has in plan and the technical aspects of the project. Chris is a geologist with extensive experience. He's worked with Iron Gold, First Quantum Minerals, and Fortescue. So he's had a lot of experience in project evaluation and project generation. So as usual, grab your favorite beverage, sit down, let's go through another Coffee with Samso and learn about LCL Resources. Welcome to another Coffee with Samso. We are back at the UWA Club here in Crawley on the University of West Australia campus. As I mentioned, I've got Chris van Wijk. Have I pronounced that correctly?
Van Wijk.
Vague.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris van Wijk. From the Executive Chair for LCL Resources. ASX code is LCL. So, Chris, welcome to Coffee with Samso. Maybe we can start by just giving us an idea of who Chris is and how you became involved with LCL.
Sure. Thanks, Noel. That was a good introduction. So my name is Chris van Wijk. I'm a geologist by background. I became involved with LCL because I went to visit these assets a number of years ago, the Colombian assets, at least a number of years ago when I was with Fortescue Metals Group, and kept in touch with Ross Ashton, who was the previous chair. And so had always had an interest in what the company was doing, and have been a shareholder along the way as well. But really, my interest was piqued last year when Ross said that he wanted to transition through the board and refresh it. And I'm really interested by LCL because I think it's got an outstanding portfolio of assets for a little company. And, the market cap is circa $10 million. There's certainly room to move there, and we can do more with these assets.
Yeah. Look, it's as I mentioned before, you guys have been, LCL has been on Coffee with Samso before with the Colombian assets. And that's in a transaction with Tiger Gold at the moment, right? Can you give us an update on how that, and then obviously how that relates to LCL today?
Yeah, LCL had run a process prior to me joining, and then after I joined, I suggested to Ross that there would be very good appetite for these assets on the North American market. So we reached out to a couple of parties that I knew in North America and put the word out that we were running a process for the Colombian assets. At that time, only two bids came in. One was the Tiger Gold bid, and ultimately we decided that the Tiger Gold bid was the best bid on the table. So we entered into a binding agreement with Tiger Gold. There's been quite a lot of movement in the background. One of the other bidders at the time then leaked a deal that they had proposed, which we weren't able to accept. And ultimately, shareholders voted down the Tiger Gold deal. So that the company has moved to terminate that agreement because the conditions precedent to that deal can't be satisfied anymore. But we are still in discussions with Tiger Gold, and we're hopeful that something can be realized that our shareholders will accept.
Oh, okay, okay. I didn't realize that that has been voted down. So that transaction is no longer happening.
That's correct.
Okay. And how does that affect the long-term plan of LCL?
Remains to be seen, Noel, at this point. My belief is that those assets are best off outside of LCL because they're very high cost assets,
Yep.
and the whole development scenario is predicated around a large open pit, which is going to take quite a long time to permit in Colombia. And the company's since moved on. You know, we've been investing our money and effort in exploration in PNG for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I guess we can get into that, the Kusi project. Can you just give us the details of that project?
Yeah, so Kusi is a skarn-hosted deposit, and a skarn is formed when a large intrusive comes into effectively limestone or carbonate units, and the fluids coming off that drop out when they react with the carbonate units. So there are some very large examples of these skarns, and they tend to carry really good grades of both gold and base metals. In this case, the company's been working on the upper limestone unit, which is mostly gold mineralized. And when I came in, you know, I sort of looked at this, and the company had been pursuing. They found some really high grade nickel and had been pursuing that avenue for quite a while. But really, with the improving sentiment in the gold market, you know, we've shifted back to a focus on gold and copper within that PNG portfolio. The company had drilled over 20 holes into that deposit and never really wrapped a resource around it. So I engaged some consultants to give me a ballpark figure, and they indicated that we could put an inferred resource around that. So really, it was just an opportunity to showcase to our shareholders that, hey, we really have generated quite a lot of value already in PNG, and there's more upside both on that project and the others in the portfolio.
I mean, I've had experience in PNG. I mean, I'm been there and did the conversation with the groups and things like that. Where you guys are tend to be the better part of not say better, but easier part of PNG to deal with indigenous issues and landowner groups and things like that. How's your experience there? I mean, obviously, infrastructure and everything is very different to what we are used to in Australia or even Africa because of the environment. So what's your experience there?
Look, I'm reasonably new, so I'm by no means an authority, Noel. But the vendors of the PNG assets are John Dobe and Glenn Toomey, and they're both still involved with the company
Mm-hmm.
on a consulting basis. But so far, you know, my experience from outside looking in has been very positive. You know, we have good engagement with the MRA, which is the PNG cadastre. You know, they tend to email us and say, hey, are you guys aware that this report hasn't been submitted, or that you need to do X, Y, and Z? This one's due for renewal, just a reminder, you know. And so they've been very proactive in dealing with us. Likewise, the landholder groups, as you mentioned, we're in a good part of PNG. All of our projects have been easy to access so far, and our relations with the landholders have been very positive. It is, as you say, PNG infrastructure challenged, you know, high altitude. We need to use helicopters for almost all of our work to get in and out, so it's quite high cost exploration. But there's no doubt that if you want to make a major discovery, PNG is elephant country.
Oh, I don't disagree with that. That's elephant country in some. I think the last time a junior had a massive holding was, if I'm not mistaken, was Frontier in 2010 or something like that. Um, the Tolu minerals success over the time, and that's also one of the reasons why I did a cover on a review on that previously, and that got me thinking when I saw where you guys are today with your resource and things like that. Although it's inferred, and but at least you got an idea what you have. How much I say confidence do you gain from the fact that Tolu is making things work? Because that's a very old project too. It's decades old. How much confidence do you take from that in terms of obviously the gold market's going really well? How much confidence do you gain that to make LCL something that a lot of people have doubts about?
Look, there are a couple of Australian examples, and I think that's pretty good because PNG has not been a jurisdiction that Australians have been all that willing to embrace until quite recently. But the two that stand out, as you say, Tolu, Argonaut's done a very big raising for them quite recently, and that seems to have gone quite well. And the other one is Mayo Resources, different space. They're doing industrial minerals in PNG, lime going into cement, but that's got a plus $100 million market cap, and they're raising big sums of money and so on. So I think PNG is coming back into being recognized as a jurisdiction that you can invest in, and that's positive. So yeah, I have been looking around for Australian examples. I mean, as I say, if you look on the other side of the pond, the Canadians have had a lot more success with things like Kainantu, or K92 is the ticker. That's gone very well. It's an epithermal system. We've got similar styles of mineralization at some of our projects, so Ube being the one example where we've got these big epithermal veins at surface. And to date, the company's been forced on finding a porphyry, and then on the skarn and subsequently the nickel, there hasn't been a strategy to go after these things. But my history is a lot more in porphyry and precious metals, gold. So I am quite tempted to go and have a look at some of these big vein systems and see if there's anything of scale there.
I mean, looking at the mineral resource, and I guess this is a investor kind of wish list. It's like, what you got, that 831,000 ounces. As you develop that over time, your gut feel, whether you can say it or not, how much of that do you think will be the final figure where you start talking about reserves and going down that road, right? Feasibility studies and all that. What could investors be looking at potentially?
Yeah, it's hard to say where that will roll out. No, it's a very big system, that's for sure. You've got a big intrusive body in the center. You've got this upper limestone unit, which we know outcrops at various other places around. So, and then you've got the lower limestone, and the potential of that is really unknown, but highlighted by one trench that returned moderate lead and zinc and zero point 0.9 grams gold, and that's several hundred meters away. So our idea really is to go and continue the soils down to the south to try and work out what the potential is south of the deposit. And we're going to run IP over that, and that should allow us both to directly detect mineralization if it exists, and we're going to try and image that lower limestone and see if that's a viable target. 830,000 ounces is a really good start. I would be reasonably confident in saying that we could get that up to over 1 million ounces, but the question remains whether 1 million ounces at where it is in PNG is economic, and we just don't know. We haven't done the work yet to say, but I have no doubt that we'll discover more pods of mineralization through doing IP and more soils. So I'm confident we can keep growing it, but what the ultimate size is, I don't know.
In terms of funding, obviously that's the big ticker, right? Your courage and your ability to do work is really directly related to the size of your wallet, I guess. How's that conversation been for you with the money people?
It's been pretty good. We've got some institutions in the company. So Merck is still in the company with a fairly big shareholding, but by far and away our largest shareholders are Chinese investors, high net worths. Collectively, they speak for over 30% of the company, and they're very supportive. They're very bullish on PNG. They really, they really want us to swing for the rafters. I think it's safe to say that people don't invest in small companies like LCL for a double your money scenario. Everyone wants 10 times their money. And so the focus really is on trying to work out whether we've got giant deposits here and roll the dice on that. So that's what we're going to do moving forward is really try and take bigger swings.
I mean, that's one of the angles I noticed, or I saw in the company that prompted me to push for this conversation. It's a 10 mil market cap. You're basically at ground floor. You've got 831,000 ounces. And granted, it's in PNG and all the complexities that comes with that, but it is not many companies has a 10 mil market cap with 831,000 ounces and the potential to look for an elephant. But obviously, funding is a big concern for any investor that wants to put their money into a company, not to say LCL, but I mean, how active are the your major shareholders? Are they people who would front up the dough when you need it? Like, let's say you got a few good results and things like that.
Absolutely. Well, we brought in another cornerstone shareholder at the last raise in November, and he would have liked to have taken more, but we were capped by our capacity. So I know that I have a supportive shareholder there. The major shareholder as well has said that he's ready to back us in PNG as well. So no, certainly the bigger shareholders are more than happy with what we're doing and the progress that the company's making. But I think, we've got to couch that with a little bit of, we've got to temper that a little bit, because 30-40% of your register is not representative of the other 60%. And I think the other thing that LCL has that most other juniors don't are 2.3 million ounces in Colombia that we're in the process of selling. And the deal with Tiger would have brought in 1.5 million in cash. We're going to rerun that process ultimately, whether it's with Tiger or somebody else, and I would expect that to bring in more cash. And so we have a pretty high likelihood of landing with a deal that we don't have to go back to shareholders in order to fund the next phase of our exploration in PNG. But obviously, if you do luck onto a porphyry, you're going to need more than $4 or $5 million.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was one of my questions too. Is that
Yeah.
the magnitude of that will be measured in 8, 9 figures, right?
Yeah.
I know you're short on time and you need to run. So, what would be a takeaway for us from this conversation that you would want us to take away?
There's a few things. We've got an outstanding portfolio of assets for a junior. The PNG assets are truly world class, and we have a good likelihood of making a world class discovery. And we've got that possibility of non-dilutionary funding coming in through a sale of the Colombian assets, which, it's still the board's belief is the best course of action for LCL.
Okay. What next 6 months? What's something that these guys could be looking for in terms of exploration activities?
Well, we've got quite a full portfolio coming up. We're looking at doing soils and geophysics at Kusi, to the south of Kusi, with a view to directly detecting additional pods of mineralization there and outlining the potential of the lower limestone. We're doing some pitting and trenching at Dada, which is a porphyry that we've been working on. One of the trenches ended at nearly 0.5% copper and 0.3 gold, so really good numbers. So we're going to extend that trench and see how big that system is, and then we'll be back at Imu, which we haven't done a great deal of work on. We discovered some reasonably high grade samples running up a river, and then unfortunately the guys ran into a waterfall and then ran out of time. So we're going to go back in and extend those trench samples up that river above the waterfall as well, and see if there's potentially another porphyry to go after at Imu. So we'll be doing work on all of our copper gold portfolio in PNG in the next 6 months.
I think it's a great way to finish, because the potential PNG is very hard for people to capture, because if you've read anything about the discovery of Grassberg and things like that, grass was just one thing out of Papua, Indo-Papua. Whereas, we on this side of thing, you might have like, your Octetes and but there's still that much space unknown and unseen, right? And it is the place where you find these giant porphyries. Would that be a fair comment?
Definitely, and being tropical, it's covered with jungle, so you can't use aster. A lot of your early stage airborne stuff doesn't work. To get boots on the ground, you're then dealing with jungle, so progress is slow through the jungle. But it changes all the time. One of the areas where we discovered outcropping mineralization, there was a big landslide, and when the guys went back in, behind the landslide was a structure that had mineralization on the structure. So yeah, it's there's definitely the potential to hide really big systems in plain sight, as it were, and you've just got to slowly and carefully, methodically do the work to uncover these things.
Okay, look, I'm going to let you go. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the update. I think it's a really fascinating story, early stage kind of stuff, which I like, because the potential is big as you want to draw it. And again, Chris, thank you, and we'll catch up with you down the road once you've done a bit of work and see where your story end up.
Thank you very much, Noel.
Thanks.
Nice to chat.